found out my parents left everything to my brother in their will, so I stopped helping with their bills and extra expenses. A month later, Mom texted me, "The mortgage is due." No greeting, no small talk. I simply replied. I, 29 male, work in risk management for a mid-sized logistics firm. My entire life is built on assessing liabilities, mitigating losses, and ensuring stability. I look at spreadsheets, I see the cracks in the foundation, and I fix them. It's what I do. It's who I am. And for the last 5 years, I've been the structural support beam keeping my parents' financial house from collapsing on their heads. My brother, 26 male, on the other hand, is a chaotic variable. He's the creative one, the dreamer. In reality, he's a bartender who works 3 shifts a week, spends the rest of his time gambling on sports apps, and somehow still lives in his old bedroom rent-free, while I've been out on my own since 22. Here is the financial layout my parents operated under. They are terrible with money. They view credit limits as targets, not ceilings. 5 years ago, they were facing foreclosure. I stepped in. I didn't just lend them money, I completely restructured their debt. I paid off the arrears on the mortgage, which was a massive chunk of my savings at the time, and I took over the monthly utility bills, electricity, water, internet, and I paid the premiums on their life insurance and car insurance. In total, I was bleeding about $2,400 a month to keep their lifestyle afloat. I didn't mind because they're my parents. I thought we were a team. I thought we were building equity that would eventually benefit the family as a whole. I was wrong. It happened 4 weeks ago. I was over at their house for Sunday dinner. My mother had made a roast, and my brother was actually present, mostly because his car had been repossessed the week prior and he needed a ride to his shift later. The atmosphere was normal. My dad was complaining about politics, my mom was fussing over my brother's plate, and I was just existing in the background, the wallet in the chair. After dinner, my father asked me to look at his laptop. He said it was running slow again and he couldn't get his banking page to load. I sat down at the kitchen island while they moved to the living room to watch TV. I started clearing the cache, running the antivirus, the usual tech support duties of the only competent child. I opened his email to check for phishing scams he might have clicked on, as he's prone to falling for the "your package is delayed" tricks. There it was, an email from their family attorney sent 2 days prior. The subject line read, "Final draft of last will and testament for review." I shouldn't have opened it, I know that. But when you are the one paying the internet bill that allowed that email to be delivered, you get curious. I clicked it. I scrolled. I read. The distribution of assets was simple. Simple and brutal. To my son, my name, we leave our gratitude for his assistance and the antique grandfather clock in the hallway. To my son, brother's name, we leave the family home, all vehicles, all savings accounts, and the residue of the estate. The justification was typed out in a note section below. It said that since I am financially independent and successful, and my brother requires more support to establish himself, they felt this was the equitable distribution. I froze. It wasn't just the house, it was everything. Even the car insurance I was paying for? The car would go to him. The life insurance premiums I paid every month, the payout would go to him to help him get on his feet. I was funding my own disinheritance. I was building a nest egg for a brother who had never worked a 40-hour week in his life, while I drove a 6-year-old Honda and maximized my 401k to ensure I wouldn't end up like them. I didn't storm into the living room. I didn't flip the table. I saved a copy of the PEF to my phone, deleted the browser history so they wouldn't know I saw it, and shut the laptop. I walked into the living room and told my dad I fixed it. He just yelled thanks without looking away from the TV. I told him I had an early meeting and had to head out. As I passed my brother on the porch, he was smoking a cigarette. He asked if I could spot him $50 for a date night. I looked at him, really looked at him, standing in front of the house I saved. I said no. I got in my car and drove home. That night, I opened my laptop. I didn't sleep. I worked. I went through my bank statements. I canceled the standing order for the utilities. I logged into the insurance portal and removed my credit card from the autopay, changing the billing setting to paper invoice mailed to their address. I canceled the family plan I managed, porting only my number out and leaving theirs to suspension. Finally, the mortgage. I wasn't paying the mortgage directly to the bank. I was transferring the money to my mother's account every month on the 1st so she could write the check and feel like she was in control of the finances. I deleted the transfer scheduled for the next week. I went strictly no contact. I didn't block them, but I muted their notifications. Week 1 was quiet. They didn't notice the utilities yet because the billing cycles hadn't hit. Week 2, I got a text from Mom saying her phone was acting up and asked if I knew why. I didn't reply. Week 3, the letters started arriving at their house. Overdue notices. Week 4, the first of the month arrived. I was sitting at my desk at work when the text came in. Mom texted me saying the mortgage is due. No greeting, no small talk. Just a demand, a summons to perform my function as the family ATM. I took a sip of my coffee, let out a long breath, and typed my reply. I told her I knew and that she should probably pay it. 3 dots appeared instantly. They danced for a long time. She replied asking what kind of joke this was and that the transfer didn't go through. She demanded I send it via Zelle immediately because the late fee would hit tomorrow. I replied that it was no joke. I wasn't sending it. I told her to ask my brother to cover it. Since he gets the house in the will, he should probably start paying for it. Silence for 10 minutes. Then came the wall of text from my father. He said he didn't know what I thought I saw or what I was thinking I was doing, but I was putting the family on the street. He called it financial abuse. He said we had a deal. I texted back that we did have a deal. The deal was I helped them out and we act like a family. They decided to cut me out of the family future, so I was cutting myself out of the family present. I told him the grandfather clock does not require a $2,400 monthly maintenance fee and wished him luck. The fallout was nuclear. They didn't just get mad, they got tactical. This is where the dirty tricks started. 2 days later, I was called into HR at my office. My boss looked uncomfortable. He slid a printout across the desk. It was an email from my mother to the general company inquiry inbox. She claimed I had embezzled money from her retirement accounts and was mentally unstable. She demanded they garnish my wages and send the money to her account. It melt the blood drain from my face, not from fear, but from pure, unadulterated rage. They were trying to torch my career because I closed the wallet. I told my boss this was retaliation. I pulled out my phone and showed him the banking history. 3 years of outgoing transfers to her, never a penny coming back. I showed him the will PDF. I showed him the text messages from days prior where they were begging for money, which contradicted the idea that I was stealing from them. My boss, thankfully, is a logical man. He said it looked like a domestic dispute, but since she was using company channels to harass me, it was a problem. I told him I would handle it legally. I left work early and drove to a law firm. Not just any firm, a real estate litigation specialist. Here is the thing my parents forgot. They relied on my filial piety and my passive nature. They forgot that I am a risk manager. They forgot exactly what happened 5 years ago when I saved the house. When I paid off their foreclosure arrears of $45,000 and paid for a new roof for $12,000, I didn't just gift it. I made them sign a quitclaim deed adding me to the title as a joint tenant. At the time, they cried and thanked me, calling it their insurance policy. Over the years, because they lived there and I didn't, they fell into the delusion that it was still 100% theirs to bequeath. They thought the will would override the deed. In our state, a joint tenancy with rights of survivorship means if they die, I get the house automatically. The will is irrelevant regarding the property. But if they were trying to leave it to my brother, they were effectively trying to sever the tenancy or hoping I'd just roll over. But I wasn't waiting for them to die anymore. My lawyer, a shark named Mr. Henderson, looked at the deed and the recent texts. He told me I had full standing. I was a co-owner. I was not receiving any benefit from the property, and the other tenants were hostile and damaging my financial standing by contacting my employer. He suggested we file for a partition action. I told him to do it, force the sale. The process server arrived at their door 3 days later. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. My brother called me from a burner phone because I'd blocked his main number. He screamed into the voicemail asking if I was crazy. He said I was suing Mom and Dad for the house and called me a selfish prick. He said he was going to come to my apartment and teach me a lesson. I saved the voicemail and sent it to Henderson. He filed for a temporary restraining order against my brother the same afternoon. A week later, my parents requested a sit-down. My lawyer advised against it, but I needed them to understand this wasn't a tantrum. This was the end. We met in the conference room of my lawyer's office. My parents looked small. They looked aged. My brother wasn't allowed within 500 feet of me, so he was waiting in their car in the parking lot. My father demanded I undo this. His voice shook. He said I was humiliating them, and the neighbors saw the process server. I kept my voice dead calm. I told them they tried to get me fired. They contacted my HR. They tried to destroy my livelihood. I told them the bridge wasn't just burned, I blew up the foundation. My mother started sobbing, saying it was just a house and they wanted my brother to be secure because I had so much. She asked why I was so greedy. I told her it wasn't about the object, it was about the betrayal. I told her she looked me in the eye for years, took my money, ate my food, and all the while she had signed a paper saying I meant nothing to them but a resource. I told them if they wanted to leave the house to him, that was fine, but they couldn't give him my half, and I wanted my half now. My father whispered that they couldn't afford to buy me out because they had no savings. I told him I knew that. That's why the court would auction it. My mother asked with wide eyes where they would live. I replied that I heard my brother was very creative, so maybe he could figure it out. They fought. Oh, did they fight. They hired a strip mall lawyer who tried to argue that my initial contribution 5 years ago was a gift and that my name on the deed was merely for estate planning purposes, implying a constructive trust. Henderson destroyed them. He pulled up the bank transfers, the notarized agreement from 5 years ago stating the funds were for equity purchase. They had no leg to stand on. Then, my parents played their dirtiest card. They stopped paying the mortgage entirely. They figured if the bank foreclosed, it would ruin my credit too, forcing me to back down and pay it to save my own score. It was a game of chicken. They thought I would blink. I didn't. I took the hit. My credit score dipped 40 points as the payments went 30, then 60 days late. I simply messaged the bank's loss mitigation department, explained the active litigation regarding the partition, and kept the pressure on the court. The judge saw their refusal to pay as waste, intentional destruction of the asset's value. It hurt their case even more. They also tried to sabotage the appraisal. When the appraiser came, the house was a disaster. Garbage everywhere, my brother had punched holes in the drywall, and they refused to clean the pool, letting it turn green. They thought a low appraisal would mean I'd get less money, or maybe I'd give up. But the judge was tired of their antics. He ordered the partition by sale and appointed a receiver to handle it, meaning the court took control of the sale process to ensure they couldn't sabotage it further. The order was signed. The house had to be sold. Because the market in our area had spiked, the house was worth about $450,000 despite the mess they made. The remaining mortgage was $180,000. My parents and brother had to vacate 30 days before closing. I hired a crew to clear it out. I didn't go inside. I didn't want to see the ghost of the family I thought I had. When the dust settled, the numbers were clear. Sale price was $450,000. After paying off the mortgage and the realtor and legal fees, the net proceeds were around $240,000. I took my 50%, which was $120,000. They took their 50%, another $120,000. But here is the final kicker, the part that gave me the closure I needed. My brother had racked up significant gambling debts, and my parents had secretly co-signed a personal consolidation loan for him about a year prior, which I didn't know about. It was unsecured, but once that large sum of cash hit their bank account from the house sale, the creditors swarmed. My lawyer had done a little digging. Since the consolidation loan was co-signed by my father, the creditors had a judgment ready to go. A huge chunk of their proceeds was frozen immediately to satisfy the debt. Between the moving costs, the first, last, and security deposit on a rental apartment, their legal fees, which were astronomical because they fought a losing battle, and paying off the brother's loan, they were decimated. I heard from a cousin that they're living in a 2-bedroom apartment about 40 minutes out of town. It's a bad area. My brother is sleeping on their couch. He had to get a job at an Amazon warehouse because they can't afford to feed him anymore. My mom tried to text me last week. Just one word. Please. I deleted it. I am $120,000 richer, minus my own legal fees, which were substantial, but worth every penny.
I used the money to put a down payment on a duplex. I live in one side, rent out the other. My credit score recovered within 6 months because I paid off my own car note and kept my other balances zero. I sometimes feel a phantom limb syndrome, a twitch where I reach for my phone to check if mom needs anything or if dad paid the electric bill. Then,
Remember the email. I remember the HR meeting where they tried to label me a thief. They chose their investment. They went all in on my brother. They just didn't realize that in doing so, they were liquidating the only asset that actually produced returns. Me. I have no parents. I have no brother. But I have my dignity. I have a house that is actually mine. And I have a grandfather clock. Yes, I took the clock. During the court-ordered clean-out, I had the movers crated up. It looks great in my hallway. It chimes every hour, reminding me that my time is finally my own. If you enjoyed watching a man legally dismantle his entire family tree, subscribe for more tips on how to enforce boundaries with a sledgehammer.